Hey there, friends and viewers. I just want to take a minute to show you guys another video tutorial. Well, actually more than a minute. This is something that people have been requesting for a long time, and the question is, Hengest, how do you make your videos? What software do you use? And all of that jazz. And recently people have been asking me a lot of questions on my Facebook that I made like 5 days ago. By the way, if you didn't know, I made a Facebook surprise. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in that. And let me just start off by saying that you can make gaming videos in many different ways, but I'll start off with the way that I do it because that's specifically what people have been asking, and I have quite a bit of experience in the matter. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. First thing we need to be concerned with is our video recording software. Now that is there's a few different ones. Most of them are free, but the only one that I would actually recommend you use through my experience is one called Fraps. It's one that is designed specifically for gaming or video, not gaming in particular, but video input. So it'll record virtually any video feed that you can render in your computer. It's very heavy on your processor and your memory. Sometimes it will draw from the GPU as well, depending on the program. Wow, my chest is really red down there. What the hell? Anyways, so here's the program itself. Now, there's a few different settings. You can have an overlay that shows you your frames per second in any given video program. That's not really important, but it'll help you indicate whether or not you're recording. And here's the slide you really need to be concerned with. Here are the options for your recording settings. You can see you have to designate a hotkey for when you want to start and stop recording, and a save path, which is where your computer will save your video files to on your computer. So I typically record to my solid state drive right here in a folder I call video capture. But if it's something big like a long battleground tactics or a dungeon guide or something like that, I record to a larger 2 terabyte drive I have built into my computer. Now the hard drive speed plays a tremendous role in being able to record effectively, meaning if you have a slow hard drive like 5400 RPM or even 7200, then it's going to really cut down your frame rate. And it's not that your processor or your RAM can't handle it, it's that your writing speed to the hard drive is being hindered by your IDE cables or your SATA cables or any of that. The disk just doesn't spin fast enough. But the solid state drive I'm using is actually the fastest on the market, so that's why I copy to it most of the time, so I don't get any degraded in quality. The other settings you have here is your frames per second you want to record in. The human eye cannot see beyond 25 frames per second. So there's no reason to record more than that unless you're going to be editing that footage, meaning exclusively in terms of gaming, slowing it down or taking stills, which is what I do a lot of the time. You've watched my time-lapse duels, I do a lot of that. So that the more frames per second you record in, the more you can slow it down and the more frames you have to still and all of that. So I typically stay to 30 unless I'm planning on editing that footage, in which case I'll probably go up to 50 or so. You also have the feature whether or not you want to record in full screen or half screen. Now I have my primary monitor, the one I record off of, is 1920 by 1080. That's a 1080p, and I do record in full screen. But you can record in half size to make it a lot easier on your hardware and also reduce the size of the files. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But essentially, half size would be whatever half of 1920 by 1080 is in terms of pixels. That'll look fine until the people viewing it on YouTube go full screen or want to render it in HD or any of that. So certainly that's where a lot of people go wrong when they try to make quality videos. And then you have your sound settings. You check this box to record your operating system sound, meaning the game sound, and then you can choose stereo or multi-channel. No reason to go multi-channel. Sometimes that can be useful if you're recording audio through Fraps. Sometimes I do that. Well, Battleground Tactics I do that, but I make sure the audio levels are fine beforehand so I don't have to mess with different channels. And of course your recording input, your microphone here, you need to make sure if you're going to be doing commentaries live that you have this enabled. And the program itself, let me just explain how it works. It records, basically a video is nothing but, in the case of 30 FPS, frames per second, is 30 pictures a second. And the processor has to take those pictures in game really, really quick and write them to your hard drive. So there's no time to compress it all. And so these settings here don't sync audio and video, and the forced lossless RGB capture, it's going to mess with the colors. Those are going to affect your frame rate, but more importantly the size of your files. So since we have that open, we have all of our settings configured. I'm just going to open up WoW real quick and take a sample so that we can work with it. I'm not wearing my headphones, so you might get some speaker sound. By the way, for those of you that may be wanting to make gaming videos using Fraps, like I said, Fraps does not compress the file size at all. This is running really slow because I'm using Hypercam, which is another screen scraping software. Oh my god, you guys are going to see my authenticator code. What's going to happen? Hengest is going to get hacked. Anyways, as I was saying, it doesn't have time to compress those video files. So in the case that I record in 30 FPS and 1080p, about 3.5 minutes of footage is around 4 gigabytes. So if you don't have the hard drive space to be dealing with that kind of footage, you're gonna have to configure some settings, or you just get a new hard drive. And we'll talk about how those file sizes affect the video editing process substantially. So yeah, it doesn't usually take me this long to load in, by the way. It's because I'm recording a bunch of stuff right now. Okay, so here we have Stormwind. Let's go to a less crowded place. You see, my WoW folder is on a slower hard drive. I try to keep all my programs on different hard drives when I record. So this is probably my slowest. It is my slowest hard drive. So when it comes to loading things, it's like that. Anyway, how about just some standard footage in the forest here of Elwyn. Okay, and I have my recording button set, so I'm just going to record 10 seconds of footage. There we go, starting now. I have no idea how this is going to appear live, by the way. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now. I was maintaining about 24 frames per second there. That's lower than it is normal because I'm doing a bunch of stuff here. Did I mention that I'm doing a bunch of stuff? Anyways, so from here on we have the footage. Here's my folder that I saved it in. It'll name it something standard like that, and this is a standard AVI file. It's uncompressed, and you can see that it's 482 megabytes, and it's just 12 seconds. That's half a gigabyte, guys, for 12 seconds of footage. So if you don't have the hardware to be dealing with this sort of thing, then it's just not going to work out for you. You're going to have to lower your settings, and you're going to have to get a lot of memory on your hard drive space. So I'm going to open up Sony Vegas Pro. Now, this is a program that I use most of the time. You can see I have After Effects down here as well. But I've been editing with Vegas for about, like 6 or 7 years. Since I was 12, I was using Vegas 6, and I'm just really accustomed with the software. I know it inside and out, and I know all the tricks and all that. But you can use virtually any video editing software you want. It's just a matter of, number one, the cost, because they tend to be expensive, and what you're trying to do. So say a lot of people on YouTube, well, I'd say the vast majority of people on YouTube use Windows Movie Maker. But before I go on, I just dragged and dropped my video file, then I just recorded into the, well, if you're not familiar with video editing programs, this isn't going to make sense to you, but I dropped it into the project area here. And so there we have our footage. And before I go on, Windows Movie Maker is fine if you're not planning on editing. You can do text overlays and things like that with Windows stuff. But if you want to start getting complicated, I won't go into detail, but a lot of the stuff you see in my videos takes a fair amount of time to edit. And so you're going to need a more professional grade program like this one. But anyways, yeah, I use Vegas most of the time. Sometimes I use After Effects, but for most of my WoW stuff, I just use Vegas. So you can see this is a preview window here. I'm going to mute my volume. And essentially it just plays through. This is not the full-size footage. It's in the same quality you saw in game. It's just this is downsized and the quality is downgraded because it's easier to work with that way. So from there, I don't think the question entailed any editing, but I'll do some text overlay so you guys can see a transparent background there. Hello, YouTube. My favorite font you may recognize. It's called Nueva something. I don't know what that means. But yes, there's some text overlay. And then from there, you have a bunch of things you can do. A lot of people ask me if this is going to be my final file size, or my final edit, then it's time to render the file. So if you're new to this, you're probably going to need to do a lot of research in order to understand. But essentially in Vegas you can go to render and then you have all these different video settings here. Now most people use a form of MP4 compression. A lot of my earlier stuff, you can see in my Battleground Tactics episode 1 through 17, I skipped out on 10 through 16. Those were all MP4s, H.264 compression. In Vegas it's called Sony AVC. That's their trademark audio video codec. And essentially you can see I made a custom file here. I called it YouTube HD, and I just messed with all the stuff here. You can do the resolution. I made sure it was 1080p there, H.264, and then 25 FPS here, frame rates. But as long as you have the resolution and the file format down, the only thing you need to consider then is make sure it's the right pixel aspect ratio, which is a 16:9. That's a widescreen. It's a 1:1 pixel textile ratio. And then your bit rate, which is the big thing. Like a fast movement game speed, if the camera's moving really quickly, you will see a significant degrade in video quality if your bit rate is not high enough. So a lot of my feral PvP stuff is like that, fast paced, like a feral charge or looking behind myself. In that case, for feral PvP, I mostly do 12,000. Or excuse me, 12 million. That's 12 Mbps, megabits per second. You can go higher than that, but the higher you go, the bigger your video file is going to be. That means the more space it takes up, the longer it takes to render, and of course, YouTube video uploads take forever. So you don't need to mess with the video or with the audio from the default settings. Typically, you want to stay with 48,000 hertz. That's pretty standard. Audio is really easy. I mean, a lot of people get audio wrong, but it's so simple. You just need to make sure that you have the right settings. And I won't go over audio because audio is a different genre and it's really complicated sometimes. So that's not part of this video. But yeah, I render some of my stuff in H.246. But lately I've been doing Windows Media Video, which is Windows standard trademark compression. You can see a lot of my later stuff is WMV. All my TGN stuff is WMV. And so the custom build I do for this is audio is the same as the MP4. The video is the same resolutions and all that. The only difference is the MP4 compression is much different. It actually affects the footage. It makes it darker and it makes the bit rate. It demands a higher bit rate. The quality is slightly better, but it's not as original as the WMV. WMV is much smaller file size, much friendlier for uploads and things like that. YouTube right now will actually recommend you just render in straight MP4, but I've been experimenting with it for months, and I've decided that WMV is the way to go, at least with regards to this program. So from there, you can just render it, let's say test, in my standard settings. Because there's no action in this video, I can scale down the bit rate to, like 6 megabits per second there, 6 million bits. And for just that 500 megabits of footage and that resolution, it's going to take about a minute to render. So you can imagine some of the bigger stuff I do, like the Battleground Tactics stuff that are sometimes a half an hour, that actually takes hours to render. This is just 12 seconds of footage, guys, that's taking over a minute. So I'm not going to finish that. But from there, you can just upload the raw file to YouTube. And that's all you do. I mean, I do a lot of editing and audio overlays and things like that, but for the most part, that is the general idea, guys. You should be able to learn from that video that I just made, this video, exactly how to make a perfectly high definition gaming video. It's not standard to WoW or any of that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye bye.